Bitcoin will likely find its way back below $100,000 this summer. Did I trigger you? In today's video, we'll be talking about the exact scenarios that I'm looking at for Bitcoin. We'll be going over the recent news in the industry, and I'll give you my thesis on the summer chop. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So we got a lot of hate a few days ago when Bitcoin tapped into the 100K region, and I said that I would be expecting Bitcoin to eventually go lower. Now we got a very nice bounce from this level as expected, but I still don't think that it's completely over for the course of the summer. Now, you know my thesis. I think Bitcoin will go ahead and chop over the course of the summer because that's typically what always happens. If we take a look at this chart over here, we can see that most of the time during the summer, Bitcoin chops around and there is not much uptrend nor downtrend. You can see that, yes, last summer, for example, we did chop around and it was a little bit bearish. However, it wasn't that hard to manage. All you had to do was hold your spot portfolio. And if you're not a seasoned trader, then you don't need to trade this kind of environment. Then we got the massive breakout, and this over here was an excellent long opportunity. And now I think that we're setting the stage for another summer chop. Now, I started the video saying that I do think that Bitcoin will find its way back below $100,000 at some point. Now, the reason I say that is because we keep on getting rejected from the previous all-time high. So if we zoom out on this chart here on the daily time frame, you can see that the previous all-time high that was set back on inauguration day happens to be a little bit of a struggling area that we're bumping into today. So we broke above it and set that new all-time high for Bitcoin. Then we came back down, and that's when we set that 100K low. Now, Bitcoin did go down into this fair value gap after, on the shorter time frames, struggling around the previous all-time high, which is exactly what we've been covering on the channel. As long as we continue to struggle below 109.5K, there is more downturn for Bitcoin. Now, in yesterday's video, I did say if we can hold that level as support, a lot of other crypto assets like Ethereum was looking extremely positive. However, because we weren't able to hold it as support, naturally, we're starting to see Ethereum struggle a little bit. Now, this isn't so bad because if Bitcoin can now hold on to this fair value gap on the daily time frame, as we can see here, and this just becomes a wick and we start consolidating in this region, then ultimately, because of Ethereum's outperformance against Bitcoin recently, I do think that Ethereum still has room for upside. Now, I mentioned in yesterday's video, if Bitcoin gets a pullback and Ethereum gets a pullback, a nice area to consider an Ethereum long would be the top of this month-long consolidation range. Now, of course, everything is determined by Bitcoin. If Bitcoin does decide to move on lower and go below 100K at this point in time, then of course, we know that Ethereum will not have that sustained uptrend. And in the meantime, just taking another look at Bitcoin dominance, you can see that exactly what we talked about a few days ago seems to be happening again. At first, this was a pretty big red weekly candle, but now we are starting to form the bottom wick, which usually tells us that we're getting ready to go on higher. Now, I don't think that 66% dominance will be hit anytime soon. However, I do think that some consolidation here can be due. And then when we do have that choppy summer, that is when Bitcoin dominance will go higher into the 66% range. And if you've been following the channel for a while, you know that the most bullish case scenario that I anticipate for Bitcoin dominance is all the way up into the 70% range. And looking at the Bitcoin spot ETFs, we can see that we're starting to get a little bit more inflows more recently. But there is some war escalations between Israel and Iran that we do need to pay attention to, because this is also what's contributing to the current daily downtrend for Bitcoin and other crypto assets. Now, if we take a look at the liquidation heat map, it does show that we did get a pump on the 12-hour chart here into this liquidity zone, and now there are a ton of shorts starting to pile up right at the low 106K level. But if we zoom out a little bit and look at the 3-day, it does paint a little bit of a different picture. We can see that now a lot of people have started aggressively shorting this market, which we've been covering on the channel. You can see here that the 30-day Bitcoin exchange liquidation map is again back to very even. Now, a lot of people were entering longs and the longs were outweighing the shorts. Then we came back down today, grabbed that liquidity, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to move much higher, but it does mean here that it is a lot less clear, which also coincides with my thesis for the summer. I don't think that we're going to have a straight uptrend summer, but I also don't think that we're just going to absolutely plummet from here. And in preparation for when we expect that huge breakout in Q4 of this year, I would recommend accumulating Bitcoin Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies of interest at the range lows as we chop around during the summer. This is, of course, for your spot portfolio. This is not financial advice, but it's exactly what I will be doing. And at that point, I will also likely be accumulating altcoins as they continue to bleed to the range lows against Bitcoin. So right here, this is a hypothetical summer range. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to come all the way back down to $74,000. There is a chance that maybe this is a deviation and this range starts establishing itself right here. Then Bitcoin goes and chops around and we can maybe make our way back to 85K at some point, but all the way up to the top of the range would be around 110K as we've continued to struggle around that region. Don't stress about it. Honestly, it would be a great opportunity if Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies were to come down to the range lows in preparation for a massive push towards the end of the year. If you like trading cryptocurrencies and you're looking for a community to do so, we do have our pro Discord where you can transform your crypto trading strategy. This is the fourth link in my description down below, and you actually get a 10% promo code if you sign up for 3 months. So all you would need to do is go down here, you pick the 3-month plan, and then you enter the discount code MAT10 at checkout to get that 10% discount. Then, if you want to trade cryptocurrencies, as I've been doing, you can trade on Blofin, which is the second link in my description down below. If you're a whale trader, there's a ton of excellent bonuses for you, and they're also there for you regular traders out there. Lots of bonuses, fantastic platform that I have been trading actively on, and you'll also notice that within my Telegram community, this is the main platform that I have been using. So let's go over some of the news to wrap up this video. $11.5 trillion BlackRock looks to become the world's largest crypto asset manager by 2030. These guys keep on accumulating, and if this isn't a sign to tell you to keep on accumulating Bitcoin, I don't know what is. Now, me personally, any profits that I make in trading, I do go ahead and accumulate Bitcoin with, because over the long term, if you've been following the channel, you know that I believe that Bitcoin will be hitting $1 million per coin at some point in the future. Now, I'm definitely not calling for it this cycle. In fact, I don't think that Bitcoin will even make it up to $200,000 this cycle, as many other creators think. But in the long term, I am max bullish on Bitcoin. Now, the next thing, Trump actually came out and said that he's working to create a clear and simple market framework that will allow America to dominate Bitcoin and crypto. Let's hear what he has to say.
One at the Coinbase State of Crypto Summit. I'm delighted to speak to some of the greatest visionaries and pioneers in the fields of tech and finance who are working to build a future powered by crypto. Many have called me the first crypto president. That's an honor. I really do consider that a very big honor, actually. And starting on day one, we ended the Biden administration's war on crypto. It was an absolute war and very unfair. And we unleashed American innovators to do what you do best, lead the world into new frontiers. We ended Operation Choke Point 2.0. I created the first presidential working group on digital assets. I named a pro-freedom, pro-innovation SEC chair, a great man named Paul Atkins, and we created the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and the United States Digital Asset Stockpile. But we are not done yet. My administration is working with Congress to pass the Genius Act, supporting the creation of dollar-backed stablecoins. And we also will be working to create clear and simple market frameworks that will allow America to dominate the future of crypto and Bitcoin.
Amazing to hear that, if you are American indeed. Now, just quickly, if we wrap up this video, let's take a look at Bitcoin once more. I do think that there's a chance that we continue to chop around in this range. Remember, the only all-important level that you really need to pay attention to simplify everything is 109.5K, which is the previous all-time high. If we get acceptance above that level, Bitcoin can actually set a new all-time high. But until now, we haven't been able to get acceptance, and you can see that every single time that we get to this level, we struggle right around it. Even on this huge pump after we hit the 100K lows, Bitcoin ended up wicking below. We thought, maybe we're holding it as support, but then we ended up breaking right back down. This tells us everything we need to know about the market, and it is preparing us for a very, very choppy summer. And that sums up today's video. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.